Ephesians chapter 4. And really, this is where you start the new part of Ephesians, where he says, okay, now this is who you were in Christ, who you are in Christ. Now, because of that, this is how you have to be. So look at verse 17. In verse 17, he says, so this I tell you and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do in the futility of their thinking. He says, the way the world thinks is futile. It's just understanding darkened, not understanding who God is. It's like they walk around with these dark glasses on that they can't even see through, and they're smiling and acting like everything's fine. Don't live like that anymore. You have seen the light. But how do you do it? How do you live this new life? Well, toward the end of this chapter, he gives us a formula that works. And really, it works for almost anything. If you've ever talked to somebody and you've needed to counsel them, this is a formula that'll work for them and for you as you talk to them, and even for things that are going on in your own life. In verse 22, he says, you were taught with regard to your former life to put off your old self. First thing to do, put off the old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness. And that's in verse 24. But in verse 23, he says to renew your mind. So the idea is to put off the old man, renew your mind, and put on the new man. What does that mean, though? What's the old man? What's the new man? What does it mean to renew your mind? Well, fortunately, he gives us 4 examples in the rest of this chapter on how to do that. So see if you can figure this out. Verse 25, he says, therefore, each of you must put off falsehood. So you put off what? Lying. And speak the truth to his neighbor. Okay? Now, why do you do that? For we are members of one body, he says in verse 25. Okay, so what's going on here? You put off lying. You put on the opposite of that, which is telling the truth, and you renew your mind. You think differently about it, which is what? We're members of one body. I'm lying to myself. So you take whatever sin there is in your life or in someone else's life, you're trying to counsel or talking to, and you put off, put on, renew. You stop doing the old. That's simple, right? There's a great comedy sketch that was on Mad TV with Bob Newhart. And basically, as a counselor, people would come in. He would only counsel them for 5 minutes. It was $5 for the 5 minutes. He'd listen to their problem. Then he'd say, stop it! Stop it! That's just about what the apostle's doing. He says, well, stop it. You don't like feeling that way, do you? So stop lying. But I'm compelled to. Stop it! Okay. And that's basically what he says. Stop lying. Start telling the truth. And then renew your mind. Think differently about it. Let's go on to the next one. Verse 20, he says, he who has been stealing must steal no longer. Stop stealing! Okay? We don't need to psychoanalyze you. Stop it! Stop stealing, but work. That he may have something useful with his own hands, that he may have something to share with those in need. So instead of stealing, what do? Give. And then you renew your mind. Look, think about how much Christ gave to you. And so you think differently about it. Verse 29. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only that which is helpful for building others up according to their needs. So instead of tearing people down, you build people up. That's how this works. Renew your mind. Think differently about it. Verse 31. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice. So all the anger. Now, how many of us deal with anger? How many people that you know are dealing with anger? How do you get over that? I mean, these are tough questions with simple answers. Verse 32, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other. Renew your mind. Why? Just as Christ forgave you. Let's look at this last one for a second. Anger is one that, man, just can dominate the life. I mean, you can just be loathing yourself. Like, man, I'm such a jerk. Why? Well, he says here in verse 32, you're not forgiving. Somebody does something or says something, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, you're right at them. Was it that one thing that made you do it? Or was it a buildup? And you just haven't been forgiving people. Maybe you need to go before God and just say, Lord, I release these things to you. I just release all the anger that's in me, all the unforgiveness. And then how do you renew your mind? Oh, Lord, you've forgiven me of so much. How could I not forgive my brother, my sister, my husband, my wife? How could I not? And so, simple. Stop doing the old, start doing what's right, and think differently about it. Think biblically about it. Think the truth about it. Well, we'll look at 5 and 6 later this week, and then we'll be done with Ephesians. God bless you. Have a good day.